This is where my amulets, billions of gold, and my sanity goes to die. Crafting is the biggest time sink in D4 currently, and if you want to get decked out, you need to spend years playing the game until you're a silver-foxed baldy. Or do you? Nah, my man, that's why I'm making this video. Because we can save hundreds of hours crafting correctly in this lovely game. And with crafting, I'm talking about tempering, enchanting, and masterworking. Because that's what we'll cover in that order. And that's not a coincidence. You should always be crafting in that order. So if you have an amulet such as this one, then you've fucked up and wasted a buttload of materials enchanting just to brick it. I'm seeing this every day on the D4 subreddit. Now let's face it, most people on Reddit may be brain cell deficient, but still, it's quite common. I'll have timestamps to the most important bits of the video, but I highly encourage you to watch the entire video because, well, hello? Anyone there? Hello? Ballsack. Ballsack. So let's talk about tempering and bricking items. Is there any way to do this efficiently and brick less items? Hell yeah, there is. For starters, we need to discuss what tempering actually is, and it's quite simple, really. It's a gambling slot machine. But instead of gambling away your house and kids, you instead slap your favorite item into the slot machine, choose a tempering manual, and then you pull the trigger. You're allowed to re-roll 5 times, meaning you have 5 chances to keep your sanity. Now, if you've done any gambling before, you should know how important it is to do this with a strategy to avoid getting fucked more than necessary. And here's mine, followed by some tips and tricks you can use when tempering. First off, you should always do the most important temper first. For example, I'm currently rocking the 1 brain cells thorns build, meaning earthquake duration is by far the most important on my weapons. And why should you do the most important one first? Well, shit, if you land it, you have a usable item. And if you don't, you should instantly throw it in the trash. The same goes for any build in the game that only has 1 build enabling temper per item. So let's check out how this looks like on the rest of my gear. So, earthquake duration is a must-have here. And the other one is simply an additive stat that isn't important, seeing as you already have thousands of additive damage this season. For the rings, I must have brawling cooldown reduction for the build to work, so I'm focusing on that one, then it doesn't matter. Same with the gloves. Now, if you do happen to land the correct temper on one of your first rolls, then you need to consider if this is the only item that you have or if you're fishing for an upgrade. If it's the only item you have, then you stop right there regardless how shit of a roll you got. If it's just an upgrade, however, then just keep re-rolling until you get a better one, my man. For example, this mace right here has 2 tempers left. As this is the only one I have, I'll keep it. But for the next mace that I'll obtain, I could just keep re-rolling that shit in the hope of getting a higher bash cleave temper. Now, the other strategy that I typically pull out is if an item only has 1 temper re-roll left. And that's my dick. Nah, it's to just pick something useful. This tip works for some classes, but not all. It will, however, be more frequent in Season 5, it seems, as we're getting the new tempers. But here's an example for the emo cringelords out there. Here's a hat. On my hat, I want corpse tendril duration. But seeing as it only had 2 tempers left, and the other tempers in this category meant an instant brick, I just went with the wordly endurance instead, as both armor and max life would be fine as hell too. Even dodge can be used. So just check out the other tempers before you destroy your item for the love of Bobby Kotick's stolen tit milk. Alright, that's my strategies. Let's see what else we can do with tempering, because there are some cool as shit tips I've gathered this season. First one is resistances. The resistance tempers are actually higher rolls than the ones you can roll on the enchanter, meaning one of these tempers is enough to get you capped for the resistance, but a roll is not. This is true for the rogues as an example, and 1 resistance temper can be more useful than a roll. But this is not true for max life, meaning that the max life tempers are worth less than a roll on the gear. So if you're trying to decide whether to grab a max life roll or a resistance roll, you should go with max life and temper the resistance. Same with armor, and for the rogue enjoyers, it could be worth knowing that the tempers and gear affixes for dodge is in fact worth less than the dodge on aspects and skill tree, seeing as the latter are additive and the former are not. Now, the most frequent question I get here on my channel is about how massive my dick is. And it's average at best. But the second most frequent question I get is how the hell do you temper on other classes and why do you want to do that? Well, shit, because it's a must for some builds and it's insanely strong. So let's check out how we do that. Back to the shit eater, aka the barb, we go. This one requires you to temper crit damage, but the barbs doesn't have that temper, not until Season 5 at least. It is extremely simple though, and it's not only the barbs that can do this. You simply throw the item in the stash, log into your rogue, and start tempering. But there are other awesome tempers that you can use. For example, the shit eater has all the ultimate cooldown reductions in one temper, meaning if you roll this and swap ultimate, you're fucked. But check this out. The Necro has ultimate cooldown reduction instead. Yummers. Alright. I do have one last tip for tempering, however, and this one is extremely important. If you happen to find a GG item and you have a bunch of pieces that needs upgrading, don't temper that shit for the love of God. Sell it. What I typically do is I go to Crimson Market, sign in, and just sell it there. You do this by screenshotting an item in-game or taking a photo with your phone in case you're a shit console abuser. They also made an overlay now, so you can screenshot while in-game. With the gold you get, you can buy 10 lesser items. And this is usually just way better, allowing you to both brick items and go for higher rolls. For example, I could have gotten a few triple GA maces here for my bash build, but most would brick or get shitty rolls. Just by buying some double GA instead, allowed me to get some nasty bash cleave tempers instead, which are worth way more than 30 crit damage or whatever. Let's head on to the Enchanter, aka the bald fuck taking all of my life savings. First thing you need to know is that the baldy is weighted, meaning these rolls right here are weighted. And what the hell does that mean? Well, shit, the further down you go, the less chance of rolling it. Or well, sort of. We'll see what we know in 1 second. And what data do I have to support this? Well, damn. These nuts for starters, but also the findings from Ava. Link in the description. They collected 2,000 rerolls on a rogue amulet. The findings didn't follow the list from top to bottom in its entirety, but nearly. What is most important here, however, is how insanely hard it is to get specific skill ranks to roll on your gear. For example, they checked how many rolls you would need to get 2 ranks to exploit on your amulet. You're then looking at 600 rerolls, which in turn means 2.8 billion gold along with 20 or so hell tides, and that's just pure insanity. So what is the takeaway here? Well, shit, for the stats that are lower down in the list, you obviously just trade for them. Don't even bother rolling that shit. You can probably purchase an exploit amulet for 100 million or so, and for 2.8 billion, you can get a pretty damn insane one. Stats such as lucky hit chance and crit chance can be completely ignored when you're looking for items, seeing as it's easy as fuck to roll them, whereas cooldown reduction is rough as well. The same goes for chance to make enemies vulnerable. I once spent more than 100 rerolls trying to get this shit affix on my ring, and well, we can clearly see why I had to punch a hole in my monitor. And again, I'd recommend doing this on Crimson Market, as it's the only option I typically recommend for trading. All you need to do is type in the passive in the Google window here, send someone a message, and you'll get that shit sorted. I'd also like to mention that they have a club that I'm a member of where they give away the coolest PCs imaginable every month. This time it's the BBC. And yes, that's the actual name. This month, you can also claim the golden ticket in case you want to take my PC away from me for free and fuck off whenever you want. The draft will then be on the stream of Woody or the Hoodie, Now, before leaving the baldy, I'd like to show a pretty cool tip. And that is, if you throw your items over to another class, then you can roll for their main stat. For example, strength on the barb, dex on the rogue, etc. And why would you want to do that? Well, shit, due to the other stats they give us, obviously. The stats you get are different depending on your class, but let's check out barb, for example. If you play any bleed build, then you need a fuck bunch of crit chance. And hey, will you look at that? Dex grants crit chance. So if we throw this mace over to the rogue right here, then we can re-roll the max life into dex and get ourselves to 100% crit chance. It's even higher than socketing dex gems, by the way, and if you've already got a bunch of max life, then you're covered, my man. Same goes the sorcerers. If you're playing the Immortal Firekuma build, for example, then you can ditch the max life and grab dexterity instead for crit chance, because why the hell not? Alright, that's the bald man. Let's head straight on over to the slot machine again, but this time we'll check out the option that doesn't make me hate my life, Masterworking. The strategy that I'm using here is to just keep resetting until I hit whatever I need to hit, and then just max out the Masterworking. This works for 99% of gamers, seeing as most people are shit newbies that doesn't even masterwork their gear fully. But there are two other extremely important things you need to consider when masterworking. First one being skill ranks. Typically when you hit the masterworking on a skill rank, you should expect to rank it up, right? Well, sort of. I'm going to spare you the math and instead show you what I typically do, and that is use the max roll calculator. Here's a cringe lord, and here is the best amulet rank for the minion neckbeards. Hellbent Commander. Let's imagine we masterwork the amulet 12 times. Hit the masterworking once, we gain 4 ranks. Twice, 5. Etc. Easy, huh? Hell yeah. Let's check out the Blood Moon breeches now as an example. We start with 2 ranks when it's 12 masterworked. We master crit once and... Wait, what the shit? Okay, twice then. 3 times? Yeah, this is fucked, and the calculations are different for unique items. So before you spend time masterworking a bunch, I recommend checking out the calculator for your unique items. You can also see what will happen with different amounts of masterworkings, which is neat. But in short, for the most popular items, if there is a unique with 2 skill rank points on it by default, you either hit the masterworking once or not at all. For regular legendaries, though, you just hit it as many times as possible. Now, for the other important masterworking tip, and that is masterworking tempers versus greater affixes. What's fucked up about greater affixes is that the masterwork bonuses only come from the basic value that is without greater affix. So if you masterwork this one fully, you get 75% extra crit damage. The same goes for greater affix. If you masterwork the tempered one, however, then you can get nearly double the value. That's why you'll always see me focusing on the tempered masterworks in my planners, for example. Well, shit, my man. Hope you learned something. Sub, then fuck off, and I'll see you in the next one.